Hello, Rutgers students. My name is Eric Cohen. I'm one of the co-founders of XBRL, and in that stead, I'm here to speak to you about XBRL, assurance, and analytics. I have to begin this presentation with a brief disclaimer. Who am I? I'm one of the nuts from which the XBRL tree has grown a dozen plus years ago. I and three other people known as the forefathers, either F-O-U-R or F-O-R-E, depending on how you like to spell it, began this mess, to which I say I don't know whether I should be saying you're welcome or I'm sorry. With that said, I've been part of XBRL from before its beginning, and the things that I'm going to share with you for the next half hour or 45 minutes or so do not necessarily reflect the opinions of my employer, without whom I could not be here, PwC, of XBRL International, XBRL US, or other organizations such as that. They are mine alone. I've been asked to speak to you today about three different things. Give you a brief backgrounder on XBRL, the extensible business reporting language, what it is, where it came from, what's the terminology, where it's in use. Given that, and where we are now, speak then about the audit implications of XBRL. And when I say those audit implications, people have different things that come to their mind immediately. Those of us who are involved currently in providing assurance on XBRL documents normally think about the challenges of auditing business information when it's expressed in the XBRL electronic format. But the other side is just as important, which is how XBRL can be revolutionizing the audit environment, how it can be helping both with traditional audit today and also how it might change the audit environment, hopefully for everyone's benefit. And finally, I've been asked to speak to one more thing, which is XBRL's role, in particular in financial statement analysis. So let's begin with that introduction to XBRL, and want to make sure that people walk away with certain key things. Number one, that XBRL began as a vision. People think about XBRL as a burden, especially a compliance burden. They think about it as a technology. They think about it as certain limited things, but as I've been saying now for a long time, I'd like to invite all of you to join me in a fantasy that someday a piece of business information, once it hits any computer, anywhere, will never need to be retyped, never need to be typed again, anywhere through the business reporting supply chain. Just about all of us have looked at some numbers or some text on a screen and retyped it someplace else or off of paper. And this is about a vision where business reporting information from first transaction or business event through to external reporting and beyond does not need to be retyped. It'll just jump where it needs to go. It's not just a better electronic filing format, which is where it's predominantly been taking hold. And it's not just about a new data format for exchanging information. It is about data. It is about business rules. It is about new processes. It's about a new, better integrated reporting environment. And the goal being to reduce unnecessary information friction throughout that business reporting supply chain. XBRL is a vision. It is then a collaboration, a group of people who came together to say, let's agree to agree on how to design and then use business information in electronic format so that we can get this vision, so that we can gain the benefits. And so XBRL began trying to engage all of the representatives of the business reporting supply chain. I'll show you that slide in just a second. And finally, certainly XBRL is about technology. It's leveraging the extensible markup language XML, a recommendation of the World Wide Web Consortium, and the XML family of recommendations to represent this business data. So I said that I was going to show you a picture. That picture is here, the business reporting supply chain. And again, when you think, and I say business, when I say business, I do mean corporations, small businesses, government entities, not-for-profits, non-governmental entities, any place where there's business transactions of some kind, when a trading partner or some other business partner is exchanging trade documents, where there are business events that need to be captured in detail. As that information is moved and used in detail or begun to be aggregated and summarized for internal use, for management purposes, operational purposes, as it's then summarized and put into certain buckets that are laid out by external authorities, prepared for financial statements, sustainability reporting, statistical reporting, statutory reporting, prepared for the external reporting marketplace, and then sent out to be shared with investors, regulators, banks, anyone who's on the outside, including governments who may take that information and share it yet again. So the business reporting supply chain has those participants of the companies, financial publishers, data aggregators, investors, central banks, trading partners, accountants and auditors, regulators and administrators. It is undergirded as a supply chain by software developers and service providers, and it is the goal of making it so that the information can flow with the least unnecessary information friction through that environment as possible. XBRL is sometimes broken into two sections, one which I am uniquely involved in, called XBRL's Global Ledger Taxonomy Framework. We'll talk more about this ability to holistically and generically represent the underlying detail in whatever level of detail you need, right down to line item on trade documents if you need it, or summarized, for example, a trial balance. So XBRL GL representing the underlying detail, both numbers and text, both qualitative and quantitative. And then the area often called financial reporting, although it's not limited to financial reporting, as we will see as we go through some examples. But the single generic holistic way of representing detail, XBRL GL, and then the purpose-specific, often region-specific, industry-specific special reports called FI. So XBRL is an international organization with many regional jurisdictions, XBRL International, XII, being the umbrella that everything runs under, and then regional representation such as XBRL US. We're about to be going to Yokohama for a conference, so XBRL Japan is there, XBRL in the UK, XBRL in the United Arab Emirates, XBRL all around the world. And so it is a collaborative environment to expose, bring visibility to, and encourage reuse and harmonization of the work that's involved. And XBRL International oversees something called the XBRL Technical Specification, specification currently 2.1, and its modular extensions. We'll talk about those. All focused on improving this business reporting supply chain with a focus on the extensibility, the X, and that means that people come together in a region of the type of reporting under a particular regulator, but then that work can be extended where appropriate. So people can say, I'm just like that, but I'm a little different, and here's how. So if you don't have firm sets, if you don't have templates, if you don't have forms, if you have some ability to expand on what's there, XBRL was uniquely designed for that. It provides the definitions, the attributes, and the multidimensional relationships, the XBRL specification, and many of the taxonomies are royalty-free, freely licensed, and go through a public vetting period to make sure that everything is as open as possible. XBRL is also specific implementations of the specification to develop things called taxonomies. We'll talk about them for specific regions and plans to create the documents for specific purposes. And XBRL is the glue from all these regional, regulator, industry, and syntax-specific environments to and beyond reporting. From transactions of all kinds into one homogeneous environment and off-stand reporting. People like analogies, and so some of the analogies that are very popular is that XBRL is like a barcode. Now, XBRL is not black and white lines. XBRL is not designed for paper so that you can use a scanner. But XBRL is about taking things that have been primarily for people, financial statements, for example, and making them so that they're machine consistent, so that computers can pull out the information and help the people that need to work with that information. Like a barcode, especially the UPC, where the UPC began at the end of the consumption line of the of groceries and the retail supply chain, where goods would come into a grocery store, and at that point they would put barcodes on before they put the goods on the shelf. At that point they would have better inventory within the grocery store. When they took it to the checkout, they could scan it and they'd always know what their inventory is. And so they received some benefit, but there was no benefit going down, and there was that labor of putting the barcodes on when it went into the store. As they began to push it back through distributors and back to the manufacturer itself, so the barcode was on the label on the product when it was first manufactured, then everyone began to receive the benefits of that automatic identification, And especially the retailers got all the benefit because they no longer had to put on and do that extra labor, but they still got the inventory value. XBRL has much the same value when people are doing what they're largely doing now, responding to a mandate from the Security and Exchange Commission or another organization. They're doing the work they're doing now. They're doing XBRL at the end of the line, sending it out. So very little disturbance of the underlying processes. There's benefit from the time the work is done, but there's no benefit getting to that point. And as a representative of the SEC said back in a XBRL conference in Belgium around 7 years ago, the true benefits of XBRL will be seen when the external-facing reports, like financial statements, are just a happy byproduct of an internal environment that's been made more efficient through XBRL. So XBRL is like the barcode. XBRL is like the standardized shipping container, which has changed the course of nations, of cities, those that could adapt to the new environment, that goods would go into a standardized shipping container and would be lifted from truck to train, from train to ship, from ship to train, without the need to have much manual lifting. Cities who used to make their livelihood from the longshoremen working on individually taking off the pallets and a ship being in place for days or weeks. And now a ship can come in, be offloaded, reloaded, and off and on its way. In that same way, the standardization of data with XBRL can bring that kind of benefits. It's been likened to a USB cable that you take two systems. Here's one vendor's accounting system, here's another, and you can cable them together and they can talk. It's a bridge between disparate systems at standard weights so that everybody can agree on the same thing. It's like yesterday's yellow pages where you needed to look something up, you pulled out that yellow book, and now people can go to the internet to Yelp or some other website and find what they need. And these are just some of the many analogies of what XBRL has been likened to. But it is an emerging electronic format for business reporting. Business, as I say, perhaps being small in scope, that it's not corporate business, it can be government, not-for-profits, and other areas. It is reporting not just in a final form, but it is that entire chain of information from first transaction off to those external reports. And it's seen its greatest play, or at least its most visible play, not its greatest play, in the United States with the Security and Exchange Commission, the SEC Securities and Exchange Commission, which is now in the 4th year of its 3-year mandate, rolling out so that every company filing in U.S. GAAP in the United States to the SEC mandatorily is filing their financial statements both in the traditional form and in an XBRL counterpart. And as of June 15th, 2012, all financial reports for periods ending on or after June 15th, 2012 are in a tremendous amount of detail. There are millions and millions of facts now individually being filed with the SEC's EDGAR system. The banking regulator and their central data repository under the FDIC, FFIEC, and other regulators also mandatorily since 2005 receiving bank call report data in the United States in XBRL. And there's many, many other mandates where for e-filing, better e-filing, for electronic compliance, such as 1.6 million filers to the UK HM Revenue and Customs doing their tax reports in an XBRL offshoot called Inline XBRL. Companies optionally filing with the Canada CEDAR system, companies to the Chile SVS, to the Israeli Magna system, mandates in Japan with the EDINET system, 2 million companies, and that's why I had to take back what I said about the U.S., over 2 million small businesses in Italy filing an XBRL, mandates in Singapore, China, Korea, Belgium, and many, many more. And those are financial statement end reports, but there are other types of reports as well. That includes the ability to do corporate responsibility and sustainability. And there are taxonomies being developed or already available from the Wiki project, the Carbon Disclosure Project. The Global Reporting Initiative has a voluntary filing program with their G3 and G3.1 taxonomies that match their G3 and G3.1 frameworks. The Open Compliance and Ethics Group has a governance, risk, and control taxonomy, something to help take all the different risk and control frameworks and be able to have a way to span information islands there. And I mentioned for internal integration, consolidation, data migration, archival, there's XBRL GL. In the United States, under this primary mandate, 33-9002, the SEC has said that all companies filing in U.S. GAAP are now to be filing their reports in XBRL. This Rule 33-9002 also speaks to filers who file using IFRS as promulgated by the ISB, by the IFRS Foundation, ISB, and waiting on some agreements as of this recording for the IFRS taxonomy to be accepted by the SEC's EDGAR system. So that's not happening as of this recording. The SEC also has some other mandates, though. There's a mandate for mutual fund risk return. There's a mandate for credit reporting agencies, nationally recognized statistical rating organizations. And again, just a few weeks back, under the rules of Dodd-Frank, a new rule that companies report on their payments to the U.S. and other governments, companies in extractive industries using XBRL. So a new mandate, and there's some others also in play. At the SEC's website, xbrl.sec.gov, you'll also learn about their observations, interpretations, and guides there. And so far, the PCAOB has been waiting for the SEC to say that assurance is mandatory. At this point in time, under 33-9002, there is no required auditor involvement with the XBRL filing. The Financial Accounting Standards Board, which received its remit from the SEC to be developing the accounting standards updates, the ASUs. Every accounting pronouncement that comes up from the FASB, turn towards the end, you're going to see a section that speaks about the XBRL that's going to be part of that pronouncement. It's an integrated process now where XBRL and the pronouncements from the FASB are interlinked. You look at the XBRL, as we'll see, you can point to the codification. You look at the codification, you look at the standards, it'll point to the XBRL. So the FASB is developing the taxonomies, coming up on a yearly basis with updates to their business dictionaries. They've got taxonomy review processes. They've got groups of people who come in to help them to try and figure out how to make this the most valuable to the market. They've got implementation guides that they're coming out with, white papers, position papers. And again, the IASB oversees the development of the International Financial Reporting Standards, the IFRS Foundation, working with them to develop the IFRS taxonomy, which falls under 33-9002. And you can learn more about this by going to xbrl.sec.gov, where you'll see the rules, you'll see the filings, you'll see the technical guidance, you'll see the interpretive guidance. What's it about? It's about supercharging financial reporting. It's about making it so that it's easier to find what you need, easier to understand, easier to consume, easier to analyze. Now what you see on the screen here, just reading some things here at length, well, let's see here, we've got some deferred revenues associated with financing guarantees and a bunch of gobbledygook and some numbers without any formatting, so it's easy to find out how many thousands or millions or billions that is. This isn't for you and me, this is for the computer. This is a machine-consistent fashion of taking the information that people have in their reports, assigning tags, assigning information from pre-assigned sets of codes, or there's some special ones here where the organization says, we've got some facts that are unique to us, not in the shared group, let us tell you about them. We take that, the SEC then makes that available through their website. What you see on the screen now is something that sort of looks like a financial over on the right-hand side. What I've done already for you is I've clicked on some of the text, and we've added this hyperlinking capability that if you don't know what something is, you can click on it and it'll bring up its provided definitions, links to the codification. So it's all about giving you more information, helping you understand what's reported with more formality and more consistency. So it's this kind of power of machine consistency, getting people information they need the way they need it, whether you want it to go into a print format, whether you want it to jump into a spreadsheet. That's what's led to global mandates from, mentioned the SEC, mandates in China and the UK, France, India, Israel, Japan, Korea. I've mentioned many of these before, but many other mandates, many other options in the area of securities, tax, sustainability, banking, insurance, and others. So I already started to throw out some terms. When we talk about the intro to XBRL, we have to use the terms taxonomy, An instance document, these are defined in the specification, that thing that XBRL International puts out. Various groups come together to develop taxonomies. They take some reporting area that's important to them, such as U.S. GAAP reporting. They find their practice, they find their rules, and they begin to formalize that in this taxonomy. They find the different vocabulary terms, the sets of things that are important to them, and they catalog them, so your agreed upon business concepts are put into this taxonomy. Necessary attributes, such as do we expect something to be a number or text or look like a date or look like a URL? If it's a number, do we want it to be associated with some sort of a monetary unit of measure like US dollars or euro? If it's not, what type of units of measure, what type of data do we expect to see here? Can it be fractional? Can it only be an integer? So different attributes are brought together. Are they point in time? Are they a period of time if they're reporting facts? Are they debits or normally credits? These attributes go into this taxonomy, this collection. The XBRL specification says how to build it, so there's lots of tools that make it possible. And then, as I said, it's all about the X of XBRL. The full fulfillment is in those environments where people say we're just like what everybody agrees upon, but we're a little different. It's about them being able to add things or change things or say that we're not going to use certain concepts or relationships and extending it depending on local regulation and implementation. And again, we're not going to worry about what this looks like. This isn't what people will be working with. There's lots of different tools to help expose what's necessary and helpful for people, such as the human readable definitions and descriptions, authoritative references, and then the things that are primarily for the machines, for the machine consumption, and for the validation, the ability to make sure that your data is of the best quality. And as you dig into XBRL, you'll hear terms like the label link base, the reference link base, the presentation link base, the calculation link base, the definition link base, and something using these link bases called formula. So it's bringing together all these pieces that make XBRL unique, taking the XML technology, which might be have its parallels in other types of technology, and then adding human readable labels in many different languages so people can share and see it while the computers can process it in a consistent fashion, providing different types of presentation to help people find what they need, authoritative references, formulas and tests and business rules, calculations to do checks, because it's amazing if you look at the financial statements that are filed with the SEC, how many of them don't foot. They simply don't add up. They don't interrelate. So in the United States, our big thing is the U.S. GAAP taxonomy, the U.S. GAAP financial reporting taxonomy from the Financial Accounting Standards Board at FASB.org. Go up to near the right-hand side of the top of the screen, you'll see XBRL, and you'll be able to pull down their materials. So it's official from the Financial Accounting Standards Board. They've got all the links to the codification. The 2013 taxonomy, which depending on the time you're seeing this, is in a exposure draft. They're looking for comments. So if you happen to hear this over the next month or two, from the time that draft is out, get over to the FASB site, look at the 2013 taxonomy, and give them some feedback. They've gotten rid of the legacy references, and it's all ASC now. But you can see we've got a statement of financial position. We've got this, it is displayed in an order that we might expect as accountants, balance sheet, income statement. The other face financials moving into the notes, disclosures, supplemental schedules, and sort of in the order that people understand so they can find the right code associated with their fact and build their instances from it. Lots of different taxonomies available, whether it's US GAAP, IFRS, Canadian GAAP, Japanese, German, of course, Canada moving over to IFRS recently, statutory filings, the European bankers and the Basel II work, and CORP, FINREP, Solvency II in the insurance arena. One of the big things is standard business reporting that we've got a slide on. I've mentioned the Global Reporting Initiative. So whether it's OSEG and GRC XML or the major accounting bodies, they've got their taxonomies, which are engaged in different mandates and programs. And whether it's these other folks around the world who are agreeing on the use of XBRL for European bankers, for corporate responsibility, tax, banking data, reporting in various countries. It's out there, it's happening, and it's growing. I mentioned SBR, Standard Business Reporting. This is very dear to my heart. This is an effort where the government's saying instead of making a company report their same data in many different ways to different parties, only has to report their data to the government in one way. So instead of having to report your cash with postage stamps to one entity and your cash without postage stamps to the other, because it really shouldn't matter, they come together, they harmonize, they agree. This effort began in a number of years back in the Netherlands, where they said XBRL sounds like a great tool to help us reduce our compliance burden. That was their charge. And looking at XBRL, they were able to bring 180,000 data points that they were demanding from companies. They were able to get rid of 99% of those data points. And they said when this comes to full fruition, we'll be able to save those companies and reduce compliance burden approximately €350 million a year. Australia did around that same time an ROI based on the Dutch work. They felt at the time they might be able to save up to $1 billion Australian dollars a year if they follow a similar program. Although they haven't realized that in a recent update, they still think that numbers very near that are very, very realistic. And so the SBR effort in Australia is about many of the different administrations coming together and saying you only have to report one type of fact to all of us instead of learning how each of the individual agencies wants their data. So reducing reporting burden, bringing together and making both the government and their relationship with the companies more efficient. So they ask for those instance documents, that's the company data, coded up, constrained by the taxonomies, with the ability to extend. It provides all the necessary contextual information, the units of measure, the points in time, the underlying entities and segments, and is subject to great technical and data validation. While you and I, looking at what you see on the screen right now, probably aren't going to say, I think this looks more efficient, the fact that computers can make sure that numbers are numbers, that dates are dates, be able to do their automated tests, means that an organization like the FDIC, introducing XBRL in 2005, was able to increase the quality of data at their front door. Instead of receiving in only 30% of the documents ready to work with, they now receive 95% plus of those documents ready to work with, to improve their data incredibly. All this is driven by the XBRL specification and its modular extensions. Will not read those all to you here, but it's a growing group of things to make XBRL more and more powerful. Perhaps one of the ones that has most interest right now is this thing called inline XBRL. XBRL began not as a way to take data, turn it into an electronic format that you could turn back into the original format, but as a way to make the data machine consistent. Inline XBRL was a way for a company to continue to have their own presentation of the data while embedding XBRL artifacts inside. From an HTML document, you can click a button and pull out XBRL instance documents. They say that it may be changing the way that companies review. It will change the way that we do our assurance on those documents. It is the way that they're doing it in the UK. And the representatives of the SEC have said this is something that you might be seeing anywhere in, let's see, I've heard as early as March of next year as an option, or June of next year, to within 18 months where this might be happening. Again, nothing official on the timeline, but just them saying that they believe that this is going to improve the way that management puts together the documents and people can understand it. So just in brief here, XBRL is really well known for financial statements, stock exchanges, and regulatory mandates. People most often think about XBRL then being a financial statement or some other e-filing document, it all being about compliance. But you heard me say before that XBRL is much more than that. XBRL is about integrating the entire business reporting supply chain, and that means that we need to improve the processes from the beginning. Financial statements and taxes are the tip of the iceberg, if you will, but making those so that they're more consumable is, you've probably heard the phrase, paving the cow path. This is about improving all the data, making it easier to gather and move detail, facilitate reconciliations, and get all the detail. I mentioned then that that important part of XBRL that makes this possible is something called XBRL GL. XBRL GL is a single, generic, global, and holistic way of representing the underlying information within an environment, the operation systems, the operational formats, and then being able to tie that and bridge that off to taxes, public books and records, management reporting. It's to harmonize all of this information. It is the information you'd find in a general ledger, which most people associate with the GL, financial accounts, statutory accounts, statistical accounts, and others, but also drills down to that detailed level. So you have your customers, your vendors, your employees, your inventory, your jobs. You can have everything down to line items on invoices, purchase orders, and other trade documents. So it drills right down to the subsystems and the relationship to the GL. It is global ledger in that it is all ledgers, all the detail within the ERP system. It is global also in environment because interestingly, well, interesting to me, what is in the general ledger in the United States or the UK is different than what's in the general ledger in France or Germany, is different than what's in the general ledger in Japan. So globally, they store different things in their general ledger system, and XBRL GL bridges these regional variances as well. So whether it's XBRL GL or these reports, the goal is that sometime every system might be seen as XBRL, that end reports are a happy byproduct of an internal environment made more efficient through XBRL, where data across languages, data definitions, and file formats, whether it's something that might be more typical for a U.S. English speaker such as myself, Japanese speaker, Spanish speaker, this being, I am told, Argentinian Spanish, whatever the subsystems, whatever the source data, whatever the application, as you need to pull out your data, query the data, as you need to do your audit tasks, your integration tasks, you can put on your XBRL GL colored glasses, look underneath at the systems, see XBRL GL, and be able to interrogate it with all the information looking the same to the machines, even if it looks different to us. So that's the brief background on XBRL. Again, lots more material available, YouTube, XBRL International website, XBRL US. Let me start to go into the auditing implications of XBRL. And as I mentioned, I wanted to talk about two things, assurance on XBRL and XBRL as a facilitator of assurance. And what might be the future of auditing if we have a frictionless information environment. So I'm sitting here in Newark, New Jersey. So when I speak about can we provide assurance on XBRL, I'm going to start off with that mindset of someone in the United States, perhaps dealing with the PCAOB as a primary regulator. And as we began to say, can the audit profession provide assurance on XBRL documents? This is something that naturally the AICPA began to investigate a very long time ago. Came out with a document where they began to say, we think that we can, and here are the terms of what to do, what the letters, the engagement letters, and the opinion letters might look like. And when the PCAOB came in, and when the SEC's voluntary filing program on XBRL, so a number of years before the current mandate, which began in 2009, the PCAOB came out with some staff questions and answers about XBRL on filings with the voluntary filing program. And that document, I believe, still is available from May 2005, where they laid out how auditors can, under AT 101, the attestation standard, provide assurance on the XBRL filings. There were indeed 3 filings. PwC provided some AT 101 opinions on filings from WR Grace and United Technologies. As we moved from the voluntary filing program to the mandate under 339002, in the rule, it says that issuers, although there is no required auditor involvement, companies can obtain third-party assurance under PCAOB's interim attestation standard, AT 101. On interactive data, they can start and stop. And then if you know AT 101, you have your subject matter and your criteria, so it's really helpful to have criteria. In the staff Q&A, the criteria was the taxonomy and the technical specification. The profession felt that perhaps that would not be suitable or available as we moved into the new program and began an effort to develop principles and criteria for XBRL formatted data. While waiting for that to happen, the AICPA's Assurance Service Executive Committee, AICPA Assurance Task Force, I've got a few more letters in there than should be in there. The AICPA ASEC XBRL Assurance Task Force developed their Statement of Position 09-1 on performing agreed upon procedure engagements addressing completeness, accuracy, or consistency of XBRL tag data. And since that time, there have, to my understanding, been hundreds of these engagements, agreed upon procedure engagements on the XBRL filings, specifically on those going to the SEC's EDGAR system under 33-9002. We don't have the firm numbers on that because the nature of AT 201, the nature of agreed upon procedures is that there is no external report. It's just going to management or the close third parties that are involved. And so we just have what the AICPA and other forums have brought together people who've done that kind of work. But we had been waiting as a profession for many things, and one of those is principles and criteria that we did feel were suitable, available, and that we were comfortable working with. In June 2011, the AICPA came out with an exposure draft on their principles and criteria for XBRL formatted information. And the timing of our recording is wonderful here because it has just been finalized. XBRL formatted principles and criteria for XBRL formatted information is now available for download from the AICPA for a small fee and as part of your normal program if you've got that. And it speaks to completeness, mapping, consistency, and structure of XBRL as the principles provides lots and lots of criteria. And so companies can be using these, making their assertions, and auditors then have a set of criteria that they can evaluate suitable because AICPA puts it out, available, appropriate, of course, up to judgment. The CAQ came out alerts in 2009 that speaks to assurance as well. So AUPs delivered to many, not publicly exposed. AT 101, we've got the small number under the voluntary filing program. The principles and criteria for AT 101 just published. I have not heard nor taken part in anything as of this point because it's just out. Outside of the United States, though, there have been a few engagements, and one that may be of interest to you is do a little search for Deloitte, the Netherlands, and XBRL, and you'll find that I believe now for 4 years they have had Ernst & Young in the Netherlands do an ISAE 3000, or more appropriately the Dutch counterpart, which is very much like AT 101 in the U.S., an ISAE 3000 engagement. Subject matter criteria very similar, some minor differences related to materiality and some wording. But the EY in the Netherlands has been providing these ISAE 3000 counterparts, letters to go with the Deloitte NL reports. The most recent one, again, just published within the last week, depending on when you're seeing this, mentioning that they did that using the 2011 Principles and Criteria draft of the AICPA as part of their criteria. So we're seeing assurance starting to grow now. Electronic documents that XBRL sort of falls under. Lots of different countries have been considering the role of electronic documents and the auditor's responsibility and the possibility, whether it's the APB Bulletin 2001, so pretty old, of the UK, saying that auditors can provide services on online data. New Zealand and Australia coming out with their work, so it's not unique to the U.S. And XBRL specific stuff is really starting to take hold. And again, the first real mandate for auditors involved in XBRL was in India in the filings with the MCA, where there is mandatory auditor involvement with these mandatory filings to the MCA. Guidance note on certification of XBRL financial statements made, and this is what that audit report looks like, the auditor's certification looks like. It is certified that I verified some particulars about their filings, and it's all material respect. The audit stuff is properly done in the XBRL, and so I can leave this to you to read in your own timing as the clock is passing by me. And so this is the first real stake in the ground here, but there's other assurance in progress, in particular in the Netherlands, where the Dutch SBR is going mandatory, and I believe the date is April 2013, mandatory XBRL filings with mandatory auditors report on the XBRL filing. So the Dutch Royal NBA is doing its best to try and come up with how can the auditors report be created and associated in a safe and secure and authentic way. In South Africa, they've been working, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange asked their IRBA, that's their version of the PCOB, to come up with some guidance, and they've been drafting the SAE 3501. With the publication of the final principles and criteria, I think we're going to see that out soon. In Japan, they've got their version of the agreed upon procedure engagements that they should be showing us in Yokohama in a week or two or 6. In the UK, they've come up with some AUP guidance about inline XBRL. So assurance efforts are happening on the XBRL filings, mandatory and optional around the world. The kind of things that people are going to be looking at or trying to deal with the differences between today's presentation environment and the XBRL or tagged environment. How do we take information and make sure that the tags are appropriate, that there's controls in place, that everything that's there needs to be there. As we move into streamed data, how do we work with that as well? And again, I'll leave these for you to look at in your casual time. How do we deal with a lot of the issues as we're moving from today's paper paradigm? In the United States, even our XBRL is very, very finely hooked into the presentation. You have to, as much as possible, match the order and indentation of the paper. You have to have the headings as much as possible, both on the top of the page and textual headings. You have to, so many things are tuned to the presentation that this world in the future where a single fixed presentation won't be the issue, but the electronic data is a fair representation, from fair presentation, fairly presented to fairly represented. These are some issues that we're going to be working on. Lots of people are concerned that the nature of the electronic filing is that the auditor all of a sudden will be moving from today's world of materiality and today's world of taken as a whole to being individually responsible for individual data points. And while those are possibilities of potential services in the future, XBRL does not drive that in any way. The Dutch assurance that I mentioned, one of the very notable things is they have a digital signature, and they take a hash of the original file and they say you can go through and you can test to make sure the document you're seeing is the exact same one that we as the auditor have seen. So how the auditor will be associated with these files, whether it's at a file level, just being able to take today's world reports and being able to wrap yourself around it, to be able to say that information either works together, so make sure that as you look at the inventory number, make sure that you look also at the inventory valuation method. As you look at the property, plant, and equipment numbers, make sure that you notice that the auditor's report that it's a going concern. So whether it's making sure that you look at information in context or whether it's you drill down to a specific piece of information and provide assurance on that, these are some possibilities moving forward. So just being able to have that number sitting up on a website and say this is our sales, and the market being able to trust that number. This is a picture that we've been painting since the Continuous Auditing Conference of 2002. And of course, something that if you know this particular organization, you know that real-time monitoring, control, assurance is important, and being able to have all the security, authentication, and trusted information delivered in real time is where this may be going. So as we talk about the scope of what we're doing, from doing less as an audit profession, just saying you're seeing a report, the report that you see is the exact same report that we saw, but we're not saying anything is right, to the trusted intermediary that people sort of expect, to that full type of assurance. These all are boundaries that XBRL and digital signatures might help us with. So just to fly through this, where may frictionless information help us? The move from human consumption of data to automated consumption of data means that both what we're looking at and what's being reported will change. Having that facilitated through standards is going to be a great help as people want that. Although it comes out on paper, many people are relying on third-party data to make their business decisions, and maybe this is going to get it so management's numbers are being seen by more people, and not saying there's anything wrong with Reuters fundamentals or Standard & Poor's or Moody's or any of the data intermediaries, but can we be getting data from management? Can we be trusting it? What will be the nature of the audit? I mentioned moving from fair presentation to fair representation as just one of the issues. How will engagement management change as we perform field work, and maybe we can be doing more of that remotely as we move to that as a requirement. We can deal with standardized audit documentation as part of this XBRL world, and we can more readily exchange information with the internal auditors, with third-party auditors. The nature of staffing will change when the data can just jump out of systems and into our audit tools instead of having to bring in specialized technology people. And again, nothing wrong with technology people, but letting them do more value-added work while the auditors can just get the data they need. Lowering that bar and engaging, strengthening all the personnel involved in the engagements. Changing the nature of risk assessment, what happens when more of the information is integrated, when we don't have to worry so much about segregation of duties because people aren't doing manual tasks anywhere near as much as they used to. We talk about evidence gathering, XBRL GL, the standardized way to collect the underlying data and have it just jump into our products like ACL or IDEA. The ability to request data and do inquiries with a common vocabulary, to be able to do confirms and have that communicate in a common format, the ability to better observe, to do reperformance, and we'll be speaking about the analytical procedures. Whether we will continue to do sampling or look at complete sets made more ready through standardization. The ability to get external data that is timely and do better benchmarking and due diligence work. And finally, what might happen with our conclusions and the communications and the final report. What will happen when the auditor's report itself is more easily consumable, can jump into people's systems and be done in real time. So just in my last few minutes here, I did want to speak about XBRL as an enabler of financial analysis, part, of course, of what we're doing in our audit steps, that better access to the basic data you're looking at, better access to market data, to peer data, and mashups. I mentioned we're in the 4th year of the SEC's 3-year roundup, that we've got 10,000 some odd companies, 9,000 companies, now putting out in excess of 45,000 to 50,000 different reports that they've done over these 3-4 years. Millions upon millions of data facts. One filer in particular, one of their financial statements, detail tagged at over 26,000 individual data points in just one report. We now have these data reports that we can grab the data. We know what to look at. We have the indication of how things interact through calculations. What does that mean? We can now go through, and there's some great stories. I encourage you to go and listen to a webcast that the FASB just put out on the 2013 taxonomy and data in use as they discussed the project. They're trying to look at the impact of their own standards. A project that used to take weeks to develop, their XBRL team was able to do in a matter of just days because they could bring it together, slice and dice the data with XBRL. I had a company say that they were about to do an IPO. They were trying to figure out how to set up their financial statements, and so they wanted to know who lays out the capital labor on their financial statements, who capitalizes it, who puts it on the financial statement, should they just lump it in with some other things. And on the screen right now, going to this is available from XBRL US, the US arm of XBRL International. It's from something they call their C-suite, CSUITE.xbrl.us. It is an analytical tool that all of the members of XBRL US have access to. And I was able to go in and say, I wonder if anyone on the report, and I did a search by the label, and that means all the captions, because they capture all the captions of their reports in their documents. Did anyone have anything that starts with anything, has capital, and then it's got some other stuff, and then has labor, so capitalized labor would show up. And I was able to very quickly find, of those 10,000 companies, that there were a very, very small handful that had broken out capital labor on their financial statements. Just one small picture. Another picture is people want to know what kind of values do people have for effective income tax rates. They looked at their report. They saw that they were at 6%. They were trying to figure out what's going on with their peers, what's going on with the market. Was that inbound? Was that out of bound? And again, just a tremendously simple little query here. And I was able to find most of the numbers between 0.03 and 0.05, the 0.06 being out of bounds. Now, these are some of the simple things that someone like me with no financial analysis type of capabilities, I don't have big sets of tools, but these tools are rapidly becoming available. And again, XBRL US displaying these things. This is a real-time dashboard. If you go to data.xbrl.us, you go to the C-suite, you can see the data in use. This is something that updates every time the SEC throws out their RSS feed. And you can drill down and you can do all sorts of analyses of what's going on in the market. XBRL US also is just started for the second year, what they call their challenge, where they're trying to encourage the marketplace to develop analysis tools so that we can do the financial analysis. There's some great products that are already available out there. I will not say the names for this particular recording. You can find them up on the XBRL.org and XBRL US website under tools, but they're tools that are Excel add-ins. So you can just grab XBRL data, you can have it show up in the way the company wanted. You can use formulas to just pull out particular things you want, build your own business dashboards. Many of the major business dashboard BI tool developers, type in your favorite tool developer, type in BI, type in XBRL. You'll find they're coming out with products as well. But again, the XBRL US Challenge, the first one that came out, they had quite a few excellent, and again, this is open source, it's all freely available, so you can go to the XBRL US webpage, look at the challenge, find these, and I'm just going to show you some examples of some of the products that are here. This is one, and you can see we've got the visualization, so we can go off, we can bring in the data automatically from the EDGAR system, click this company, click this industry, click that industry, bring the information in, and do your own analysis. Here's another one. You can see some different companies they brought in. They're doing the checks, and again, this is a free open source tool that anybody can use. A free XBRL viewer and processor of certain things is called AREL, as in XBRL, ARELLE.org. Just go there, download it for your environment, whether it's a Linux, Mac, PC, or others, and it has the available Python code. It'll let you do all sorts of great XBRL things. One of my favorite things that it can do is it can do some automatic checks. So you want to make sure that your organization is not named in someone else's financial statements. You want to find out who's mentioning you. You want to do some automatic tests of find some companies where their quick ratio has gone through the roof. You can set up formulas. You can set up text facts with this AREL, and it'll just automatically check the RSS feed of the SEC in real time, or as real time as you can get, and it'll come back and let you know what meets your needs. Free software available today that has that kind of power. So whether it is bringing the information into your spreadsheets for your own models, whether it is open source tools that let you do all sorts of analysis, XBRL has opened the way to unveil all the information in the filings both here in the US, and I mentioned some of the other sources available today, the Japanese EDINET system, Chile SVS, Israeli Magna, many different environments around the world. The data is available for free, standardized format, tools available for free and for fee to help you get what you need from XBRL. So I see that we're where I wanted to be pretty much. I hope we're where you wanted to be in our introduction to XBRL. What is XBRL? A vision that a piece of business information, once entered into any computer, never needs to be retyped to meet the needs of everybody in the environment. Although financial statements has been the really big play, it is not just about financial statements and e-filing. It is about a future of a integrated environment of frictionless information. In terms of audit and assurance, we are currently seeing audit begin to become very important for these mandatory filings, for the compliance filings. We see that the profession is coming together, coming up with principles and criteria, coming up with environments where people are first starting to do this, understand the issues, sharing that with others, and finally, in terms of your own benchmarking, due diligence, financial analysis, millions of data points in the United States alone now available as of June 15th. All companies filing in U.S. GAAP with their filings on or after June 15th are now providing very detailed information. You can find out every number in their financial statement. That vision that someday a number, whether it's on the face of the financials or on page 103 of 107 of the notes, that date is here now. Virtually every company now filing in detail. Incredible amount of information out there. I hope this introduction to XBRL has been helpful for you, and hope you enjoy everything else that happens here at Practice. Thank you.